Chinese companies are increasingly investing in manufacturing output in Mexico. Mexico is an attractive economy for foreign manufacturing geared for export to the US as it has duty-free access to the US market and comparably cheap labor costs. The recent investments include auto parts, electronics, and furniture. As an executive of one Chinese company that located a manufacturing base in Mexico explained, "If you want to do good business with America, you must have something close to the market." Such investment decisions are not by coincidence, as Chinese executives have openly admitted they've shifted manufacturing to Mexico to avoid paying the tariffs of 25% they'd otherwise face by manufacturing in China. One Mexican investment executive acknowledged that the Section 301 tariffs led to a flow of Chinese capital into Mexico. "It was not common for us to help Chinese companies. But after the tariffs were imposed by the US government to China in 2018, a lot of Chinese companies started to knock on the door." The Chinese building wave in Mexico includes entire industrial parks to host Chinese companies. Hofusan Industrial Park, about 25 miles north of Monterrey, is a converted 2,100-acre ranch that is home to manufacturing plants for 10 Chinese companies amounting to $1 billion of investment over the past 3 years. The industrial park is expected to grow to 35 businesses over the next 2 years and have as many as 15,000 workers when at full capacity, more than half the size of the nearest town of Salinas, Victoria. Chinese firms are well known for using transshipment to penetrate the US market in spite of US efforts to stop the practice. In December, the Department of Commerce found that to avoid tariffs on Chinese solar panels, Chinese companies were manufacturing solar cells and modules in China and then shipping them to Southeast Asian countries for minor processing before being exported to the United States. Such actions amount to an effort to evade the existing anti-dumping duty. There are more Chinese people, which is Xiao Canchio's most intuitive feeling when he returned to Mexico 5 years later. Whether it's Chinese passengers on the China-Mexico flight, or local parks or neighborhoods in Mexico, he can always meet a few Chinese people. Xiao Canchio introduced that this time the company is going to Mexico to build a factory, hoping to complete the construction of production capacity, products, and production lines in Mexico. The entire process involves factory site selection and construction, personnel recruitment, logistics and warehousing, and other links. His job is to upload and distribute, and coordinate various processes. 1 June, the founder and chairman of Jilian Group, also sensed the enthusiasm of Chinese companies going overseas to Mexico. Since 2021, the number of consulting companies going overseas to Mexico has significantly increased, with hundreds of companies coming to consult each year, and the number of consulting companies is still on the rise. Established in 2014, Jilian Group provides one-stop comprehensive services for Chinese enterprises going overseas. With the increase in the number of consultations, in 2021, Interlink Group established Interlink Mexico Consulting Company in Mexico City and Interlink Mexico Engineering Company in Monterrey, New Leon. 1 June introduced to Salt Finance that from 2014 to 2020, only a few dozen Chinese companies may come to consult with Mexico to go overseas each year. Previously, more were trading companies, while in the past 2 years, there have been more manufacturing enterprises. In 2022, home furnishing companies such as Gujia Home, Minhua Holdings, and Ali Home have all decided to invest and build factories in Mexico. Qixing Technology launched the Mexican Manufacturing Center as early as a year ago. Home appliance companies such as Sanhua Holdings and Hisense Group have all settled in Mexico. Compared to home and home appliance companies, companies in the automotive industry are more concerned about going overseas. In March of this year, Musk officially announced that it would invest or exceed $5 billion to build the world's largest electric vehicle factory in Monterrey, New Leon, Mexico, with an area 20 times that of Tesla's Shanghai factory and an annual production capacity of 1 million vehicles. When Tesla heard last year about building a factory in Mexico, Chinese suppliers couldn't sit still. Last May, Dongshan Precision announced the establishment of a subsidiary in Mexico. Last July, Ningde Times announced that it would invest $5 billion to build a factory in Mexico to supply batteries to Tesla and Ford. Dongshan Precision, Lijiong Group, Lancy Technology, Inluan Company, Limited and other automotive parts companies have also announced their investment in building factories in Mexico. Not only component suppliers, but also Chinese domestic automotive brands are eyeing Mexico. Previously, Chinese automotive brands such as BAIC, JAC, Chery, and MG have already laid out production and sales in Mexico. In March of this year, Great Wall Motors established its Mexican subsidiary and successively launched 2 new energy vehicles. The relevant person in charge told reporters from Salt Finance that at present, Great Wall has initiated research on investment projects for local factories. In September this year, BYD's executive vice president and president of BYD's Americas region, Li Ke, stated that the company would consider whether to build a new factory in Mexico based on market demand. According to a reporter from Salt Finance, BYD has established 6 offline dealerships in Mexico and is expected to open 50 stores by the end of this year, expanding its business layout to 32 states. With the further improvement of store construction and service system, BYD will continue to work closely with its partners in Mexico. The inflow of capital also reflects Mexico's attractiveness in the manufacturing industry. According to a research report from the Dallas Federal Reserve in the United States, Mexico's manufacturing industry attracted 36% of foreign direct investment in 2022, with automotive manufacturing attracting 8% and automotive components attracting 4%. As one of the largest economies in Latin America, Mexico has a certain attractiveness in terms of industrial transfer. Mexico has abundant natural resources such as oil, natural gas, and coal mines. The national population is about 131 million, with 59% of the working-age population. The country has a relatively complete industrial system and a complete range of industries, with developed petrochemical, power, mining, metallurgy, and manufacturing industries. Among them, the automotive industry is the largest manufacturing sector in Mexico and one of the pillar industries. As a member of the World Trade Organization, Mexico has signed 14 free trade agreements covering over 50 countries, 32 mutual promotion and protection investment agreements with 33 countries and regions, and 9 economic complementary free trade agreements. It has outstanding advantages in expanding exports, attracting foreign investment, and increasing local economic vitality. Mexico, which borders the United States, has become an ideal springboard for Chinese companies to enter the U.S. market, with a closer geographical location, significantly reduced transportation time and costs. To accelerate the transportation of components and raw materials from New Leon, Mexico to Texas, the state of New Leon has established a Tesla supplier dedicated transit lane. In August 2022, the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act was introduced, proposing a tax reduction of $7,500 per electric vehicle, but battery assembly, raw material procurement, and processing must be carried out in North America. The introduction of a series of requirements and regulations is all urging enterprises to further transfer production capacity to North America. For enterprises, the most important thing is to avoid high tariffs and potential geopolitical risks in the United States, Wang Yuanpu added. An industry insider revealed to a reporter from Salt Finance that a listed automotive parts company chose to go overseas to Mexico because the company had already signed a relevant agreement with Tesla. Only by investing in building a factory in Mexico can they obtain subsequent automotive parts orders. Although it can avoid high tariffs and reduce transportation costs, the overall cost of investing in factories in Mexico does not necessarily have an advantage. Although Mexico has abundant labor resources, the prices are not cheap. According to Mexican government statistics and Labor Department data, the monthly wages of manufacturing workers typically range from $400 to $1,000 depending on the manufacturing sector and skill level. In China and Vietnam, this data is $620 to $930 and $250 to $500, respectively. Due to the difficulty in obtaining work visas in Mexico and the high cost of employee expatriation, Chiao Conchio's company's construction project mainly relies on local construction teams and personnel in terms of implementation. The proportion of Chinese and Mexican employees in Chiao Conchio's company's Mexican project is about 1:8. It's not an exaggeration to say that one Chinese person can work as well as 3 Mexicans, and the people here are not very willing to work overtime. No amount of money can be given, and it's difficult to contact them again after work. In addition to labor costs, the cost of raw materials required for local factory construction is also very high. One June introduced that the prices of most building materials products are 7 to 10 times, or even 20 to 30 times higher than those in China. In order to save on factory construction costs, they will choose to purchase materials from China. Not only the raw materials for building the factory, but also a large amount of raw materials needed for production need to be purchased from China after the factory is built and put into operation. We have multiple suppliers to choose from in China, and currently the main source of raw material procurement is from China, where assembly work is completed locally, Chiao Conchio added. There are not many suppliers here, and they still need to be re-evaluated in terms of qualification, quality, and delivery stability. Chinese enterprises generally do not put aside their core links and generally meet the minimum standards in various regulations, such as the proportion of local product production and the number of local employees. From this, it can be seen that Chinese enterprises building factories in Mexico still highly rely on China's supply chain while utilizing the advantage of origin to avoid high tariffs. Compared to directly producing finished products in Mexican factories, more raw materials and semi-finished products are imported from China for reprocessing or assembly. While the trade volume between China and the United States has decreased and the trade volume between the United States and Mexico has increased, the trade volume between China and Mexico is also rapidly increasing, and China is Mexico's second largest global trading partner. According to the statistics of the General Administration of Customs of China, the total trade volume between China and Mexico in 2022 reached $95 billion, of which China's exports amounted to $77.5 billion and imports amounted to $17.5 billion. In 2020, the total trade volume between China and Mexico was $60.85 billion. In addition, the products produced by Chinese enterprises in Mexico have gone through the process of importing raw materials or semi-finished products from China, completing assembly in Mexico, and then exporting to the United States. It can be inferred that part of the increase in Mexico's export trade volume to the United States comes from China. Although Mexico plays an important role in the global manufacturing industry, its inherent social problems also constrain the development of its own manufacturing industry. Murder, kidnapping, theft, robbery, and extortion are frequent criminal activities, and the social security situation has always troubled the development of Mexican society. According to the Mexican Ministry of Citizen Protection and Security, SSPC, there were a total of 33,308 homicide cases in Mexico throughout 2021. Among them, sexual crimes increased by 2.66% year-on-year, violent crimes increased by 28.1% year-on-year, robbery cases increased by 9.3% year-on-year, and kidnapping cases decreased by 22.3% year-on-year. Jing Qingyang, the brand development manager of cross-border logistics service provider Tang Dynasty Logistics, told Salt Finance reporters that at the beginning of opening the Latin American route, the company's partners had conducted research in Mexico for nearly a year, and the most important thing was to understand the local power situation, what fees need to be paid, and which local power we have dealings with. We have conducted relatively clear research. Jing Qingyang revealed to a reporter from Salt Finance that during the transportation of goods, in addition to paying protection fees in advance and hiring federal police, a local person who can hold a gun should also be arranged among the accompanying transport personnel. After the goods are transported to Mexico, the cost of security will account for over 60% of the operating costs of foreign businesses. Jun, on the other hand, told reporters from Salt Finance that due to the fact that his company is not related to the interests of drug trafficking groups, he is not greatly affected by this, but he may also encounter some theft incidents. In fact, in Mexico, Chinese factories usually hire local security companies and pay around 16,000 to 40,000 yuan per month. Previously, the main focus of trade policy was on free trade, production efficiency, and production costs, but now this is no longer the case. Today, in global economic relations, companies from all countries must also consider aspects such as geopolitics, supply chain elasticity, and policy stability. And this kind of exploration and rush is precisely the collective state of enterprises going overseas in recent years.